Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to another edition of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer, presented to you by Black Cats NYC, alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Cannot thank you all enough for joining us on this Friday evening, gorgeous night here in the tri-state area. So if you are out, we do completely understand, and hopefully you'll catch us later on, possibly on demand, where you can catch us on Google Play or even listen to us live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even iHeartRadio, or even later on search us at i95sportsnetwork.com. All good things there. And as you do see, we are on iHeartRadio, i95 Sports Network, YouTube, all of the main areas of podcasting. So cannot thank you all enough for joining us here on this episode number 54, presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, how are you guys?
Doing well there, Joe. Happy to be back here after a week off last week, but just happy to get back to the grind here and update everybody on what's going on in the sports world. We're less than a week away from the NFL draft, and the Mets aren't hitting. Life is good.
Yeah, there you go. Rob DeLuca, live from Seaside Park, New Jersey. It's a different spot for you this afternoon, or this evening, if you will. How are things down on the shore as it's getting nicer outside?
No, it's cold as hell down here. Right? It's very cold, very windy. But no, it's a setting our great listeners are familiar with. And, you know, a bye week last week, but it just brings us into a great show today. We've got so much to talk about. We've got some great guests as always. And as always, let's get it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, fellas. We have with us actually backstage. We have Dan McGoyon. He will be with us. He will be discussing college football, the NFL draft. We've got so much to talk about as well. And also we will be having Elite Sports New York's James Kelly with us later on in the program, as well as our good friend Casey Bryant to close out episode number 54. So why don't we get things started? Let's do it, and let's welcome in our main guest of the evening, Dan McGoyon, ladies and gentlemen. Dan, we really appreciate you coming on, and how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. I'll do a little better if those Mets bats wake up for Jacob deGrom tonight, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
It's really crazy to see how it's just continuously same old Mets, brand new owner, Francisco Lindor, but we'll get to that later on. Guys, next week is the NFL draft already. I cannot believe it. April is almost done. And as always, everyone says April showers brings May flowers, but really April has just been flying by. And that also means just right around the corner is going to be OTAs and volunteer OTAs as well, off-season training for all the veterans and all the NFL teams. Really crazy stuff. How it was just felt like yesterday when Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl. But let's get things started here, fellas. Let's look at the draft next week. It's going to be taking place in Believeland, if you know what I mean. All those people know that I always call Cleveland Believeland. And you know what? Let's talk about what the New York Giants have in store. I want to start this off with Ian Schraier here, because he's the draft and football connoisseur and even the statistics guru as well. Let's see what you've got here, sir. The New York Giants, they are slated to pick, if I'm not mistaken, right below 10, I believe. I think they're 9 or 10 or in that range. And Ian is muted on his side.
I was muted there. I'm sorry. They're picking 11.
They're picking number 11. And with that being said, anything exactly do you see? What do you see the New York Giants doing next Thursday night?
That's a really good question, because there's a lot of different ways they can go with it. A lot of the way I've been reading Twitter and the way I've just been feeling out the way Giant fans feel right now is, everyone's a little unsure of which way they're going to go. I know right now the Vegas Sportsbook has the Giants as the favorites to land the touted wide receiver out of Alabama, Devontae Smith, with the best odds of taking him in the draft. There's talk of them maybe looking at upgrading an offensive line. Obviously, they no longer have Kevin Zeitler after they shipped him out to free up some cap space, so they still need. They're still very young on the O-line. There's been talk of them grabbing an edge rusher. I'm not so sure if that's the right place to go right now at this point at 11. If they decide to go edge, I'd like to see them trade back a little bit. And then there's also a possibility they could go cornerback. I mean, a name that's also been thrown around a little bit, another Alabama name, is Patrick Surtain. So I think it's there's a lot of questions. I think they can go best player available. They can address need. I think they made so many good moves in the offseason, whether that be Kyle Rudolph or Adoree Jackson, or to really to build up that cap space and to really address so many needs of theirs. But they're in a very precarious situation. We don't know which way they're going to go at this point.
Yeah, it's really weird to see, especially you brought up Kyle Rudolph, how he also had a foot injury, and the New York Football Giants did not adjust his contract. And a pretty wild quote for all those Giants fans out there was that Dave Gettleman said that this is the Giants way. We do not alter those contracts. We give it out to the guys that really deserve it. And that I thought was pretty gutsy to say, especially when we are in the era of the salary cap, and you never know where you or who you could be getting. Could you be getting the Minnesota Vikings type Kyle Rudolph, or could you be getting post-surgery or post-foot injury Kyle Rudolph that could potentially not be the same as what he was up in Minnesota? Dan Magoyon, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear your thoughts on the New York Football Giants and the NFL draft. Picking number 11, where do they go from here?
I think 11 is an extremely intriguing spot with the Giants, and there's so many ways you could dissect this pick. Whether it's, do you go for need? Do you go for best player available? What is your biggest need at this time? Which players could potentially fall? I think they're kind of, depending on who you talk to, a lot of people might tell you there's 6 or 7 elite guys outside of the QBs, right? So now if you're a Giants fan and you're assuming they're not going to take a QB, you're going to root for as many QBs as possible to go. Could 3 QBs go? Could 4? Could 5? If 5 go in front of the Giants, then now, that suddenly opens up the possibilities of the different guys who could end up slipping and be there at number 11, who you didn't think would be there when this process started.
Yeah, it's really crazy to see, just by looking actually at our little prompt here. The best thing that I see here that Ian Schraier wrote was, quote, "Please do not draft an edge rusher at number 11." I thought that was one of the funniest things I've seen. Rob DeLuca, do you agree with Ian on that, or no? Or do you think maybe an edge rusher could be in the cards for your New York Giants?
I agree with Ian fully here. This is a very hard pick for the Giants to screw up. That's a way to put it. Is that they have so many options here, because after pick 2, once Zach Wilson goes to the Jets, this draft is up in the air on where anyone could go from picks 3 to like 15. It's insane how it could just be so interchangeable right now. I think that right now the big question is, are the Giants going to go BPA, best player available, or are they going to address needs? I personally am always a fan of addressing need, because honestly, granted, if a best player available also addresses your needs, that's a beautiful 2 birds, 1 stone scenario.
Yeah.
But I'm always in favor of addressing the needs, because by addressing the needs, that's how you truly get better as a team. If you just add the best player available on a position that you're already pretty strong in, what does that do except make that position stronger, but you still have the weaknesses everywhere else? So it's a tough call right now. Like I said, it's a very tough pick to screw up, even by trading it. If you get the proper assets, trading it is an option. Trading back is an option you can absolutely take here. So, and there's definitely a lot of teams that are intrigued by this 11th pick, just to throw out a couple names there: Chicago, New England, maybe even Las Vegas. So it is very, very close. It is a very close call here on what the Giants would do. If I'm Dave Gettleman, if I'm on the clock, I have that pick. My pick goes to none other than Rashawn Slater, the offensive lineman out of Northwestern.
See, now that's actually the thing that a lot of people have said, because especially with Zeitler is now gone, and Nate Solder in his first season, he looked like an absolute bust. What would be the best thing to do? We saw a couple of years ago when Dave Gettleman made the BPA, or best player available, choice by taking Saquon Barkley. And actually, it worked out for him, obviously, but he did get a lot of heat for that, because you need an offensive line, or at least a formidable one, for the running back to be able to make these plays. And he did not have that. They were not able to do that. And not only that, too, Saquon Barkley was an absolute tank, which was fantastic. What do we see in terms of, or even our predictions in terms of where the Giants go? Do they trade down? Could they possibly get maybe a phone call from a questionable team that, one would say at this time is not really looking to trade up or potentially even down?
I think what that comes down to, Joey, and Dave Gettleman addressed this in his press conference yesterday and said that, he's tried in the past to trade down and he just doesn't want to be fleeced. I don't think he's traded down in 8 years in his time between being the general manager of the Giants and the GM of the Panthers. So the Giants are not a team that has ever traded down. The last time I remember them trading up was to grab Landon Collins in the draft out of Alabama when they traded up into the second round to go grab Landon Collins out of Alabama. But I have no problems with them going out and addressing the offensive line. It's an area of dire need for them. I think there's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a strong possibility, but with the need of quarterbacks in this draft and the number of wide receivers and the number of really incredible skill players there are at the top of this draft, you could really see a guy maybe like a Penei Sewell fall a little bit, and then maybe the Giants entertain a trade up. That's why I'm okay if it's Slater. The only reason I said I don't want an edge rusher at 11 is because right now these edge rushers look like a lot of projects. And this is a team, yes, does need an edge rusher, but right now guys like Gregory Rousseau from Miami or Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, guys like that, they are, they're kind of getting projected in the mid to late first round at this point. And the Giants are in a very comfortable situation where they can either get an offensive lineman, which would address a need, or just continue to bolster their skill players by grabbing a guy like a Devontae Smith if he's there.
Well, I mean, now I want to look actually at the other side of MetLife Stadium and the other New York team in the New York Jets. And, obviously we know who they're going to draft. And it's very difficult because obviously they were trying to get Trevor Lawrence being the number 1 overall pick. And you know what? They actually hurt themselves and shot themselves in the foot by winning. Yes. For the general sports fans that are out there, that really can happen. You can shoot yourselves in the foot by winning. And that's what the New York Jets did out in Los Angeles in the new SoFi Stadium against the Rams. Brutal stuff. But it really did happen. The New York Jets are going to be taking Zach Wilson. We know that's going to be in the number 2 pick. Obviously we know who the best quarterback in the draft is, but for the New York Jets, Dan, is Zach the correct or even the right quarterback for head coach Robert Saleh and general manager Joe Douglas, who surprisingly to some, and even from what we've heard too, rumblings, maybe he might be even out on the street. So what do you see here in terms of, is Zach Wilson the right fit?
I think Zach Wilson is the right guy. Obviously, Trevor would have been the ideal guy at number 1. Once you won those 2 games, you lost that opportunity. But I think in Zach Wilson, you have a quarterback who has an amazing electric arm. He's got that quick release that you really look for. He's got that improvision game as well, where he can kind of change angles, make throws on the move. He's mobile within the pocket and he can scramble, and he's got the power. He's not the biggest guy in the world, so durability is a little bit of a concern. That's something you don't have with the Trevor Lawrence, but he's got the strong arm that can fit the ball in through windows. And I got to be honest, guys, I think if Wilson is not in this draft, I would not be surprised if Sam Darnold were still a Jet and the Jets would be a team that would be looking to trade down right now if they hadn't already.
Well,
wow.
Dan, if I could follow up on that, it's a 2-part question, and I know you as the Jets fan yourself. Do you think that Sam A got a raw deal, and B, do you think that Zach Wilson, as a result of the school that he played at, even though he had a good pro day and he had a great season, has a little bit of a red flag attached to him instead of the Jets maybe drafting another Power 5 guy like Justin Fields?
As for Sam, I think, it's both things could be true, right? It's possible he is not the guy and that was a bad pick, but we never really found that out because he was never really given the opportunity to excel here. I was looking at the different stats and why the Giants should draft an offensive lineman, and one of those is, they gave up the second highest percentage of pressures of any team. Well, who gave up the first? The Jets did. So, and this was an improved Jets offensive line from Darnold's first 2 seasons. He lacked weapons. He lacked innovative coaching. So there's very few quarterbacks who would have succeeded, I think, in the hand that Sam was dealt. I mean, you talk about the type of roster Lamar Jackson had, the type of roster and coaching Josh Allen has had. We're light years ahead of what Darnold did. So it's hard to say, really. I think it was a good move for Carolina. It was probably best for Sam to move on. And I understand that, probably one of the factors was things being even, the fact that, hey, you're going to have to make a decision on Sam, and are you going to pay him or not? While with Zach Wilson, you get to kind of reset the clock in terms of having that rookie structure, that rookie payment for the quarterback. I think that definitely was a factor. I don't think that should be the primary factor, but I think that was a factor as well.
It's really crazy because, Dan, I can't even imagine as a New York Jets fan, how, you just see the revolving door of players and top-notch players that this team continues to get. And, there's nothing that they can really do and perform out on the field. And now we're seeing Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson. It's going to be that 1-2 punch that really should have been in New York. And now it's going to be in Carolina, which really is just unfortunate. But better days ahead, I guess. I mean, it's tough. And now, actually, I got to ask you this question. As a Jets fan, how tough is it really to see this over and over again?
Well, I mean, as talking from a fan perspective, you kind of almost become numb to it and used to it, especially if you're like me, you're a Jets fan, you're a Mets fan, you're a Knicks fan. It's, I think it's about 130 something seasons between the three franchises and a little to show for it in my lifetime. I'm not taking responsibility, but it's, it is what it is. And you're kind of used to it. But I, as from a fan perspective, I try to be optimistic because that's what being a fan is about, right? Yeah. Sports should be a fun thing. And, if I'm overly optimistic or looking forward to something, it's not going to hurt the team.
Yeah.
You fans can have fun and enjoy it. I know you also mentioned the concern with playing at BYU compared to a Power 5 team. I don't think that's too big of a concern. I think, that's kind of balanced out by the fact of take a look at who, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Fields and last year Joe Burrow and Mac Jones, like he kind of threw to a lot of really good players.
Yeah.
Opponents weren't. So all these other elite quarterbacks, like 90% of the time they step on the field, their whole team is significantly better than the opponent. So they also have that advantage playing in their favor.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know what? Exactly what you said in terms about these Power 5 schools as well. And I think also somebody that also really broke that drought or even that stereotype would be Daniel Jones. And I really have to give credit where credit is due. And especially because I'm an Eagles fan and, I mean, hey, listen, the New York Giants took a flyer on Daniel Jones and they put their future and into a Duke guy. And so far it's panned out. So you never know in terms of exactly what you were saying about a player from BYU. Maybe not these big schools, but you never know. They can really either light it up or it's a big gamble, but it could be eventually something down the line that could be good.
Let's say this though, Joey.
I remember Josh Allen play with Wyoming. His first game was against his final season was against Iowa, and they were just manhandled, and he looked awful. But if you watch the game, you're like, "Oh, what is he supposed to?"
Right.
Yep.
I think what it is, and going back to your point about Daniel Jones there for a second, Joey. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just having some issues with your connection there. Ian, please go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think when you had mentioned that the Giants took a flyer on a Duke guy, the Giants really took a flyer on a Manning guy is what it is, because of Eli and Peyton and Archie's connection with the head coach at Duke and David Cutcliffe. And Cutcliffe said, Jones is the guy. And I remember going back to that draft 2 years ago, and everybody thought the Giants were taking Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State, and the famous video of him sitting on his couch smirking when he found out that the Giants drafted Daniel Jones and not him. Look, one of those quarterbacks right now is actually starting in the league, and the other one's not. Who would have thought that 2 years later, the one starting in the league right now would be Daniel Jones, and the one that's still looking for a job is Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, you're 100% righty, and I mean the shock there is to say the least. But I mean, granted, at this point, I'm glad. I'll still never be all right with it at 6 overall because I can say with certainty he would have been there at, I believe the second pick that round was 17.
Yeah.
17. Yeah, I with full confidence will say he still would have been there, and that the defensive Josh Allen was the right move for the Giants to make at 6. I will stand by that for the rest of my life. But nonetheless, it is good to see that after 2 years that hey, the Giants are at least stable in terms of those positions.
Yeah,
so that's what matters the most. And now it's time for Daniel Jones to take it to the next level. I want to see it. I want him to play like a 6 overall pick. Nothing would make me happier than to be wrong about him. Let's do it.
Well, they've set him. Well, I'll tell you this, Rob. They've set him up with enough at this point.
That they have, yeah.
If they go out there and draft Devontae Smith, they've done even more.
Right. So. Yes. At this point, he's got the weapons. That's also why I'd love to see Slater, because I think he could use a little more protection. Because let's be real. Let's look at that 2020 season. Daniel Jones was on his back how many times? And 90% of the time wasn't his fault. So I agree completely. It is on him now to take it to the next level.
Fellas, let's move on here. There was some talk, and we heard this as one point. Actually, just before we move forward. We do have this. Stop knocking my Giants. Listen, I will forever knock your Giants. That I will tell you. I will forever knock the Giants. Number one, and number two, I can't stand the Giants, Bobby, and he knows that. So. No, I will continue doing that. That is 3.
Rob, we are Giants fans. We have the right. We have the right to knock them.
That is true. I want to ask this guy how many championships the Giants have and how many the Eagles have.
Oh, please!
Do I want to
ask Joey? All right. Let's move forward here, and we heard some rumors, obviously, about Alex Smith potentially hanging up the cleats. And then a couple of days later, it truly happened, and retires after a 16-year career, and an amazing comeback story for the ages. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, dead serious, a comeback for the ages. This man had 17 plus surgeries and was very, very close to having his leg amputated. Yes, I did say that. A professional football player nearly having his leg amputated after a brutal, gruesome fall. I mean, I don't even know how else to even put this. It was so difficult to watch and also so difficult to see the treacherous comeback that Alex Smith really put together. And I think he did one hell of a job. Not only that, and there was a few documentaries and few 30 for 30s, E60s, whatever it was, that showed the progression of what he had to do in order to make it back on the football field. And even to this day, he does not have certain feeling in his leg because certain things were just simply crushed, literally crushed. Rob DeLuca, Alex Smith, what we saw last year, a really fantastic season. He was unable to really to finish it out, unfortunately. Taylor Heineke was the one that really won it, and Alex Smith kind of was put to the back burner. He was also injured as well, so that, it really couldn't, unfortunately, work in his favor altogether. How good of a career is this for Alex Smith? Obviously, in San Francisco, he was beaten out by Colin Kaepernick, but in Washington, he made a pretty good deal, and in Kansas City, he made a pretty good deal as well.
Yeah, this career has an interesting and pretty iconic path. I mean, you talk about what he's done. He was decent in San Francisco, was beaten by a better quarterback at the time. At the time, the better quarterback beat him out for the job, and so he had to leave. But he found his way again in Kansas City under Andy Reid. It was a great connection those two had. Didn't quite get all the way there. And obviously, who else comes in for the Chiefs but none other than the
Patrick
greatest
Mahomes.
quarterback in football right now, Patrick Mahomes, led to Alex Smith needing to come to Washington, where he wasn't terrible, but nonetheless, I believe that it was just the injury, heartbreaking. And then to what we saw last year, I actually see him play a game, and comeback player of the year doesn't even begin to describe how, I mean, that award beyond deserving, like that. No, wasn't even a story remotely close to Alex Smith. I don't want to hear a thing about Ben Roethlisberger comeback. No chance. Ben Roethlisberger's injury was not essentially life threatening. So I'm not gonna be taking any debate on the fact that Alex Smith is the undisputed comeback player of the year, and it's iconic. Congratulations on your retirement, Alex Smith. Into the sunset. Beautiful.
I think you said that perfectly. You really did, because the way you preface that is that one of the best comeback stories ever. And I think in all of sports, this is one of the best comeback stories ever in history, in the millennium. I agree with Ben Roethlisberger. That comeback story, it was great. But then guess what? Then they fizzled out. Did they not? And we remember speaking, obviously, with our good friend Jeff Wexel. And
many times, Joey. I don't even know how many times I have to say the Pittsburgh Steelers were the biggest frauds last season.
They were the biggest frauds.
I don't think you can count on one hand how many times I said it.
That is true. That is 100% true. And really, I think what we saw and what Alex Smith was working with, you couldn't really give him, you could not throw everything at him and say, okay, we expect you to go out and win a playoff game. They were very close, yes, with Heineke, in the saddle. But it's simply, how much can you do, especially when you're coming back from a life-threatening injury? And he still performed at an A- rating, I think, in my at an A- level. Dan Magoyan, what are your thoughts on Alex Smith and the journey that he took to eventually get back to this spot? This is an amazing story.
Yeah, it's definitely an amazing journey. What a finish to help get his team in the playoffs. Like you said, he wasn't there for the end, but I believe he was 5-1 in his starts than like every East stack had in wins last year, I think. But to think back to early in his career when he was basically labeled a bust after being the number 1 overall pick, who would have thought he would have lasted 16, 17 seasons? Mike Singletary and that bunch, they had some expectations. They didn't come close to reaching them. And then Harbaugh came in and he kind of helped resurrect his career. I think back to that championship game against Rob's football Giants, where I believe Williams was the punt returner who I think fumbled 2 punts in San Francisco on that rainy day. Otherwise Smith might have gotten to the Super Bowl. He played really well in that game. And I think even with the Chiefs, I believe they lost that great comeback to Andrew Luck and the Colts in the playoffs, where Smith also, his defense let him down in that one, and he played spectacularly. So to go from you don't see that often. You know what I mean? You look at a Derek Carr and you look at other guys who were high picks, who flamed out, who got that bust label, who had to deal with that albatross on them, to be able to pick themselves up to still have a productive NFL career is so rare. And I think it's that character that it's not a surprise that he was the guy that came back from that injury.
Ian Schraier, your thoughts on this journey, especially in our division?
No, I think Dan and Rob both said it best. And I think what we can't forget also about Alex Smith was that he was the number 1 overall pick, and that the 2 premier quarterbacks in that draft were Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers was the quarterback that was hanging around in the draft room most of the night in Radio City before the Packers scooped him up. But yeah, I think one thing you can't doubt about Alex Smith in his career was the fact that he was just such a gamer. He didn't have the strongest arm. He wasn't but he was so accurate, and he was so accurate when it mattered most. And let's us not also forget that maybe if Alex Smith is the starting quarterback in that playoff game against the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers, think about that Taylor Heineke kept the Buccaneers, kept the Redskins. Oh, see, now I'm losing my track of team names at this point. Kept the Washington football team in that game up until about the fourth quarter. So if Alex Smith is in that game, it really makes you wonder if he is the piece that puts Washington maybe even at 7-9 and winning the NFC East against the eventual Super Bowl champions. It begs to question whether or not maybe Alex Smith would have upset the Buccaneers on his own.
It's a story I would have loved to have seen, Ian, that we unfortunately did not get.
I personally believe, though, exactly what Ian said. I think that really could have happened.
No, there was a legit shot that it could have happened.
Because Taylor Heineke was that close, was a few plays away
It was
from beating Tom Brady.
It,
If
honestly,
it was Alex Smith out there, I think
yeah.
it would have happened. I don't
And
think it could have.
yeah,
I think it would have.
And it honestly comes down to you need the veteran experience in that and the playoff experience at that point.
And he had it.
Alex Smith has it. You know, Taylor Heineke,
100%.
not so. Taylor Heineke, not as much. So it pretty much
not
comes
at all.
down to that.
He doesn't really have any. He doesn't have any experience at all.
Right. So that's what it came down to. Like, you
Right.
know, like you said, he was just a few plays away. You have a guy like Alex Smith in there, he could execute those plays because he's been in the situation before.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Magoyon is, I believe that there are some connection issues on his end. So that is why I believe he did remove himself from the feed, or he did remove himself from our area. If you are watching, if you're listening, he is not with us right now. So if you are watching us on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever you may be watching, even on Zingo Channel 199, that is the biggest thing. He's not with us right now. We'll be expecting James Kelly from Elite Sports New York shortly. So Ian and Rob, let's finish off with the NFL here. Kansas City made a big trade here about 3:00 this afternoon. Kansas City traded for offensive tackle, left tackle Orlando Brown. They also got a 2021 second round draft pick, number 58, 2022 sixth round pick. Baltimore got the 2021 first round pick, number 31 back, third round pick from this year, number 94. Pick number 136 in the fourth round this year, and a 2022 fifth round pick. Baltimore by far has the best front office because they continue to build through the draft and they develop these stars, these star players. And it's unfortunate because, and the reason why I say it's unfortunate, because they were unable to sign such a stud in Matthew Judon, who then eventually went to New England. But you're starting to see what this team can do. They develop these players, and they are baby Ravens. They are just absolutely fantastic.
It's not even that what they're starting to do, Joey. It's what they do year in and year out. They continue to always look to trade down. They always look to add draft capital. Like if you look at a situation like I'm going to go back about 10 years now, but you look at like the Tebow trade. When the Broncos traded up for Tebow, they traded the Ravens a second, a third, and a fourth. And then you think of when you go back the year that Saquon was drafted, Lamar was drafted, and Baker was drafted, the Ravens traded back up into the first round to go get Lamar. So this team knows this team not only drafts best player available when they have the capability to do so, they know how to address need the right way. They know when they need to go up. This is why they add all this draft capital. Ozzie Newsome runs the best front office in all of the National Football League. And to me, it's not even close. This team just continues to build through the draft. They build the right way. I mean, you look at a running back now that's growing into his own after just 1 year, like J.K. Dobbins. This is a team that is always in the hunt to win the AFC North and always in the hunt to win a Super Bowl every year because they just build up the right way. The Chiefs, they needed a move like this. Orlando Brown, there was a lot of talk he wasn't coming back. It makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs, who are desperate right now at left and right tackle, to plug in right now at least someone at left tackle because now Eric Fisher's gone. You still have a bit of a reclamation project like Mike Remmers, the former Giants right tackle, now starting at right tackle for the Chiefs. But again, I mean, I'm going to sit here and praise the Ravens because this is what they do year in and year out. It shouldn't surprise anybody.
Yeah, Ian, I like it. I like it for both sides, honestly. I think Orlando Brown is exactly what the Chiefs needed. They definitely needed, especially after what we saw in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes needs that protection in desperate ways. Even though Patrick Mahomes still looked like like a god amongst men, still out there. His receivers let him down, as well as his protection did, plain and simple.
Well, his offensive line also let him down too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, his receivers and his protection straight up let him down. Not good.
And then the Chiefs went out and they just said goodbye to these guys and said, you know what, you can't, you show a poor showing in the Super Bowl. Bye.
If you can't, you can't on the big stage. You got to perform on the big stage. That's the big thing. But Orlando Brown, it was seen pretty clear he wasn't coming back to Baltimore. So this was a good move by the Chiefs. Did they overpay a little bit? Maybe, but that's just the beauty. The
Ravens always find ways to get out.
I was just saying, the Ravens front office always finds the way to do this, and they continue to do it again and again.
Not even that. Also, I want to conclude on this point here. Let's not forget, they also have Ronnie Stanley coming back next year. He did blow out his Achilles last year, and we remember that game on Sunday Night Football. I remember the show immediately right after I had said that the Baltimore Ravens will falter because Lamar Jackson does not have that protection, because Orlando Brown had to shift from right tackle over to left. He can play both sides, and that's fantastic. And I personally think that Orlando Brown is better than what Eric Fisher was in Kansas City. I really believe it. He's also younger.
Career, yes.
Yeah.
At this point, you're right. At this point of his career, yes.
He's definitely better. This is a massive upgrade, but again, still a hole on the right side of the offensive line in Kansas City.
They'll figure it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us bring in our special guest from Elite Sports New York, James Kelly. James, where are you? There he is. Okay, James, thank you so much for coming on here. Joey, Ian, and Rob right over here. Welcome to the show. How are you? And thank you so much for coming on.
I'm great, guys. Thank you for having me. I caught a little bit of what you guys were talking about before, and I'm even more excited to be here now. Share a little baseball knowledge. I'm not much of a football guy, so that's going to carry me through some group chats for a few days. Those talking points.
Good. Well, we are definitely glad that you will be able to have some brief football knowledge, but let's go. Listen, let's talk about our New York Yankees. And I'm reaching in here into my chest because even though it is very small, I do have a gold Yankees necklace here that I wear every single day, and I've worn it ever since I got it when I was 7 years old. I am a diehard New York Yankees fan, and James, I am scared. The way things look right now is beyond brutal. The team looks really just lethargic. Everything looks just terrible. Give us your insight about what we are seeing here this year.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that and say that I'm a little scared now because they're already down 1-0 tonight, and Jordan Montgomery's still not out of the first inning, so that's not a great start. When the season started, there was a couple weeks where I'm saying to myself and to other people, like, all right, let's not get too out of pocket here. Let's relax. It's the Yankees. We know they're going to be in the playoffs. They're just getting off to a slow start like they do every April. And now we're at April 23rd. Yep. I'm starting to get a little worried because the problems that they're having are problems that we've seen before. The inability to score with runners in scoring position. That's something that plagued this team in 2019 before we brought in DJ LeMahieu. And DJ LeMahieu really did a great job fixing that issue for us. But I mean, so far this year, that's been the main problem. And I mean, the Yankees, even when they're good, aren't exactly a fun brand of baseball to watch. The analytics approach, and it's mathematically proven to win you more games, yes, but it's not a whole lot of fun waiting for a walk and a home run, just waiting around all day. And that's when they're winning. When they're losing like they've been over the last 3 weeks, I mean, this has been borderline unwatchable.
Yeah. And you know what, too, something Ian and Rob, and I remember we did say this, and I remember in our Major League Baseball preview, in our preview show a couple of weeks ago, I remember saying and actually pointing out over and over again is the starting pitching. Low risk, high reward, but also at the same time for a lot of these guys, like the starters, high risk, high reward. That's the problem. And right now we're seeing it with these starters. There's nothing there. There's not a lot of hitting there. There's not a lot of pitching. There's not a lot of anything. Ian, what do we got here from the outsider perspective and the Mets fan in the room?
No, I think this isn't like most slow starts for the Yankees in April. We know that they're built off the home run. We know that they strike out a lot, but like we said, we know they're built off the home run because of the ballpark that they play in. But when you look at that lineup every single day and you see names like LeMahieu and Sanchez and Judge and Stanton when healthy, am I a little surprised that Hicks is struggling? Yeah, but I think at the same time, I think that Hicks has also been hurt the last couple of years as well, which hasn't helped his case. But my concern to start, I guess, to ask you, James, is more about the pitching. We knew what we were going to get out of Garrett Cole to start the season, but I really initially liked the Kluber move. Obviously, Kluber has still not refound that form from a couple of years ago. But bringing in names from the spring, because we did not see them go out there and try to retain a James Paxton or a J.A. Happ. We saw them try to go with the younger guys and try to get something out of Monty or try to get something out of Davy Garcia, who didn't make the team out of camp. What was, as the team was where you see them now and where you saw them in the spring, do you like the way that Cashman approached the way he did with the rotation following Cole, or do you think that there's going to be some need for upgrades sooner rather than later?
Oh, I think, come July, if we're still having some starting pitching problem, we're definitely going to have to make an upgrade. I think, Brian Cashman clearly got a budget. The Yankees didn't want to go over the luxury tax, and we're right up against that threshold now with the team we have, which is why we didn't go out and add or bring Masahiro Tanaka back, a guy like Masahiro Tanaka or James Paxton. And I guess we kind of dodged a bullet with Paxton because he's going to get Tommy John surgery.
Sure.
But it's, Corey Kluber, I was weirdly more confident in him because we signed him for $11 million. Like, people were projecting that he was going to get $4 or $5 million and kind of be that, let's take a flyer on him and see. And if, $5 million isn't going to make or break our team at the end of the day, if Corey Kluber isn't that good. But when you give him $11 million after one bullpen, and it's also worth noting that Eric Cressy was in charge of his rehab, you come into the season with a little bit more confidence and you say, well, clearly these injury things have to be behind him, or at least according to Cressy, these injury problems are behind him. So we're expecting closer to 2017 Corey Kluber than we're expecting like 2019, 2020 Corey Kluber. He's shown flashes of it. The fastball was never that great to begin with. The slider, I don't know. He doesn't even really call it a slider. He just calls it the breaking ball. That's it. That's looked pretty good so far. Jameson Taillon too. These guys haven't gotten a lot of action over the last 2 years. So there are going to be starts where Taillon gets blown up for 5 runs, and there's going to be some starts where he goes 4 2/3 and only gives up 1 run. It's just, that's how it's going to be early on. And we'll see, come June, July, if those numbers have really kind of stabilized. And with the Yankees offense, what more are you really asking for from Jameson Taillon and Corey Kluber than a quality start? If you get me through 6 innings with 3 runs, the Yankees should win that game.
Yeah, it's really crazy to see, especially when you had brought up earlier about how the Yankees are sitting right on the luxury tax area, just, right in the, the 180 mark, the 190 mark, right in that range. And it's crazy to see also how this Steinbrenner-owned team, obviously George is no longer around, hasn't been around for nearly 11 years, and obviously his sons were making the decisions long before he did pass away. But the George of old, we know for a fact that he would be going over and way over the luxury taxes. He didn't care. He just wanted to buy. And now we're seeing a very different Yankees era now. The New York Yankees are now 12 years out of their most recent World Series, which is crazy to say. It just shows we're getting old. But not only that, too, it's just, we're seeing a lot of these players come on budgets. And I think that the biggest mistake, James, correct me if I'm wrong, and I want to get to Rob DeLuca right after this, or right after James, but that $11 million contract for Corey Kluber potentially might make or break a potential deal heading into July when it comes to the trade deadline.
Absolutely, it could, because, as I mentioned earlier, we were, projecting him for $4 or $5 million, and he ended up getting offers from other teams for even more than $11 million. So the Yankees really did have to get to that number if they really believed that Corey Kluber was going to be an important part of the rotation this year. They had to go up to that number. So, you don't know what you're going to get from Corey Kluber, and it's a lot to spend, and you're not leaving yourself a lot of wiggle room come the deadline unless you get to the point where you are willing to go over that luxury tax. You are willing to make that move. And I think just on the broader point of, the Yankees not winning a championship in the last 2 years, part of that is, that the teams haven't been that good. I'm thinking back to like a 2013 Yankees roster when we had Vernon Wells, Travis Hafner.
That's
those,
true.
Yeah, those are bad teams. Those teams had no chance. And also the rest of the league kind of caught up. It's no longer required to spend a lot of money to have a World Series caliber team. More teams are looking at the playoffs as a crapshoot rather than let's get, the best possible roster we can get to give us the best chance. You look at the Rays last year, they spend, $40 million and they make it to the World Series. And you look at the Dodgers and they blow past the luxury tax. They end up winning the World Series. Good for them. But other teams, because of the increase in analytically minded front offices, it's easier to kind of tear down your team, rebuild for a couple years, draft the guys that you want to draft, develop them the way you want to develop, and then you can have a window like the A's have had with a Matt Chapman and a Matt Olson, where these guys are cost controlled for 6 years. If you need to go out and make another move, you're not breaking the bank, going over $150 million, because these core guys that you have are young and cost controlled. So it's become a lot easier for teams to do that mathematically than it was, say, 20 years ago, when you kind of had to wait and see. You could trust the scouting reports on prospects coming up, but you didn't really know if they were going to translate to the major leagues until they had been there for a couple years. And then by the time you have the opportunity to acquire them, they're free agents, and you have to spend that George Steinbrenner level money to get them.
Rob DeLuca, you see, obviously, when it comes to the pitching, and you see Domingo Germán is, obviously coming off of a 2020 suspension season due to domestic violence within his family. But it's so tough to see, this man coming back and, getting at one point, or him going from the alternate site back up to the big leagues. How difficult is it to see, these guys, they're basically playing chess when it comes to, just trying to get these, pieces into wherever, or even playing like with Legos, trying to connect the dots, and just connect these pieces to see if anything will work. Do you feel that would be the same way as, do you think that that's what the Yankees are doing right now? Just connecting these pieces with whatever they've got?
Are they playing against themselves?
Yeah.
Like the solution almost seems really simple here. There's one common denominator who just sits on the taxi squad and alternate site that should be getting a shot by now, and his name is Deivi Garcia. I don't know at what point do we have to wait as Yankee fans to see this anymore, as we have just seen another disastrous first inning from the New York Yankees. They're down 3-0 for the second night in a row.
Yeah.
And honestly, it comes down to the fact that these starting pitchers outside of Garrett Cole are hit or miss on every night. You're getting a decent outing, or you're getting shelled. And at this point, it comes down to, I would love to see Deivi Garcia come in at some point because he deserves a shot. But it's also pretty clear that the Yankees are holding out hope that Luis Severino is going to come back and just be that second, third rotation man that can just deal again, which it's going to be tough because he's essentially 2 full years removed from baseball. This is not going to be easy to see. And I don't understand why that's what the Yankees might essentially be waiting for. That's just what I'm looking at as to why, other than the luxury tax, as to why they haven't, because not giving Garcia a shot is where I get lost the most. And I want to kind of hear James's take on that, because I mean, what are we waiting for here with Deivi Garcia? That's what I'm wondering at this point.
The magic word, service time. Those are the magic words for the Yankees and Deivi Garcia. They want to get every ounce of baseball they can get out of Garcia. And, I'm kind of out on service time. I understand why teams have done it in the past. But I think that's something that's going to be clearly addressed in the next CBA coming up. I would be shocked if there's not a strike because of service time specifically. But I mean, we see teams manipulate service time every year. I mean, the Mariners are doing it with Jared Kelenic right now. Like, give me one reason why Jared Kelenic is not ready to play for the Seattle Mariners. Who is blocking this guy? And it's the same thing with Deivi Garcia right now, where you've seen the flashes of talent that he brings to the rotation, and it's part of it is just new blood. Get somebody new in here. Let's see if he can kind of spark something for this rotation going forward, because right now the Yankees don't have that thing that they're rallying around. In 2017 they had the thumbs down guy, and 2019, they had Savages, they had, Let Brett Bang, they had an identity as a team. And so far this year, we haven't really gotten to that point where we feel like this is one cohesive unit. We feel like it's a bunch of guys in a lineup and a pitching staff who are just trying to put their best foot forward, and they're just not a team yet.
It has not. For me, it's just like, why not at this point? Like, you got nothing left to lose when it's early in the season and you're already at the point where you might as well give it a shot because what you're doing right now isn't working. So there's nothing left to lose.
It has not been a gaudy party this year. That is for damn sure. They are batting as a team, the New York Yankees, that is 211 as a team. That is atrocious, and that actually ranks 29th in baseball out of 30 teams. I want to switch over and head over the river to Ian's team over there, to the New York Mets. And I know, James, that you're obviously a Yankees guy, and right now we are 100%, or actually 75% with you included, outmatching Ian here because he's the lone Mets fan in the room, and he's been through hell and back with the Wilpons being his owners. And you know what the crazy thing is that they're still not really performing up to par at all. And the crazy part is that going back to what we were talking about with pitching with the Yankees, right? We look back at what MLB.com says also in terms of team ERA. And the Mets have a 3.46 team ERA, which ranks sixth best in baseball. The New York Yankees are right behind them, 3.48. In the seventh spot. I want to go back to the Mets because what Ian was talking about for this whole week in our group chat, me, Ian, and Rob, was that how the Mets don't have any run support and anything along those lines. And we all know how bad Jacob deGrom needs some run support. I saw a statistic about a week and a half ago where it was, I think, 85 or 86 of his starts, deGrom starts, out of 190 or something along those lines, where his team, his offense, scored 0 or 1 run, and he was given a no decision or a loss for it. Extremely disappointing. In the runs column, the New York Mets are ranked dead last by scoring only 45 runs this year. James, I know you're a Yankees fan, obviously, and you're a Yankees guy for ESNY, Elite Sports New York, but I want to hear your Mets take on this, and I want to see what Ian Schraier would have to follow up with. Let's hear your take on what the New York Mets have done and their woes, because the Yankees are not too far off.
Absolutely. And I'll preface it by just warning you guys that I do follow the Mets very closely. I do MLB analysis for a radio show upstate. So a lot of what I do is based on the Mets, and a lot of it is based on Jacob deGrom's lack of run support, although he did get some in Colorado this week. He gave up 3 runs, none of them earned, but still ended up the Mets still ended up winning a Jacob deGrom start. And it always reminds me, like 2 years ago, after his second Cy Young award, I remember seeing this insane stat that if the Mets had just scored 3 runs a game for Jacob deGrom, he would have had like 30-something wins. And he had like 10 wins that year.
I believe it.
He'd been like 30-2. Instead, he was like 10-9.
Yeah, and it's absurd because then you also get to the end of the year, when we're voting on awards and you have those 90-year-old men coming out of the woodwork saying like, oh, how can we give Jacob deGrom the Cy Young Award? He only had 10 wins. I was like, he needs a new league. He's not built for Major League Baseball. He's built for the next league. He should be playing on the Field of Dreams with Shoeless Joe Jackson. There's no reason Jacob deGrom should be pitching to major league hitters. They're not ready for it.
Ian Schraier, your thoughts on your team and a follow-up with that, or your response?
There's nothing to argue about it. I mean, look at the stats. Look at the Mets' record when Jacob deGrom pitches. I mean, there's nothing to go off of. I mean, the stats are as plain as could be. When you look at the what is it? When you look at, like, for example, the Mets are hosting the Nationals tonight, and they had first and third, nobody out, and J.D. Davis strikes out on a foul tip, and then Jeff McNeil grounds out into an inning-ending double play. Like, it did nothing shocks me with this franchise. I mean, what really surprises me the most, because I said this in our opening day preview show, I said this team has got a lot of what ifs. What if Alonso doesn't hit? What if
Well, looks as if
Okay.
that.
All right, we've been seeing a lot of technical difficulties.
Yeah,
'cause
we-
Joey, you and James actually dropped for a brief second there.
Yeah,
And-
so it's definitely not us there, but
no, this might be a StreamYard thing.
It possibly might be a StreamYard issue, but as we do have the three of us here, I think the biggest thing here, fellas, is that as we discuss a few things, obviously with the Mets, I want to go back and actually, since obviously the three of us here are Yankees fans. Yeah. James, last week we saw baseball fans, Yankees fans rather. They were throwing balls on the field. It was honestly, I thought that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And obviously we know, when there's a visiting home run hit, we know damn well that we're going to throw that baseball back. But now we're starting to see it when they're, not doing well and they're losing. That really is so difficult to see. For you as a Yankees fan, how difficult was that to see?
Yeah, I hated that. I hated every minute of that because there's part of it where the stereotypical Yankee fan is an entitled jerk. I don't know. I have some colorful language for it. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this, but the Yankee fan in general, yeah, it's just, there is this stereotype that we feel entitled to win every single game. And the way that we've been getting beat by the Rays over the last couple of years it's frustrating. It sucks. It sucks to lose to the Rays like that so many times, especially at home in Yankee Stadium. It's one thing to lose in the Trop. We have to destroy the Trop. It's the worst place that's ever existed. No baseball stadium has ever been as poorly designed as the Trop. I mean, who builds a catwalk above a baseball field where you have to, they have specific designations? Like if it hits catwalk A or B, it's still in play. That's a live ball. You have to play it off the catwalk. And it's just,
one of them's a home run. Okay.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I'm watching Gary Sanchez try to track a pop-up at home plate and it gets lost in the catwalk. Who built this stadium? That's besides the point, though. The Yankees have never been good at the Trop. They're never going to be good at the Trop.
James, I'll just ask you a live question right now while we have a little time left. Who turned the on switch on the Rougned Odor? Because he just hit another blast and tied the game. Who turned the on switch on him the last few games?
I don't know, Bautista. Yeah, Jose Bautista. Yeah, no. Odor he's that. We're looking for Luke Voigt. We're looking for Mike Tauchman in Rougned Odor, and I don't really see it. But so far over the last couple of days, he's been doing pretty well. I guess he just likes hitting in Cleveland.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just watched the segment from James Kelly and what really grinds his gears. Because I'll be 100% honest with you, that really summed everything up in terms of what I was thinking when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, because that building is an absolute atrocity, and I hope I never get to visit it one day.
I've gone twice. You're not missing much.
There you go. Ian Schraier, let's conclude with what you were saying just before you got bumped out of here with the Mets. We were discussing earlier about the run support or the lack thereof, and really what right now a Steve Cohen run team is. They're really underperforming, if you will, when such high expectations are here and ready to go.
I mean, you really want to get excited over the fact they scored 6 or 7 runs in Colorado, of all places, Colorado, with a lineup that is supposed to be full of power hitters. I said before, you look at the second inning of tonight's game against Washington. They had first and third, nobody out, and J.D. Davis strikes out on a foul tip, and Jeff McNeil grounds out into an inning-ending double play. This is just what the Mets have become known for, not just even in Jacob deGrom starts, but how they're looking right now, 14, 15 games into a month into the season. Fans are definitely getting impatient. I think they feel a little better because after getting Lindor, it's now we have the ability, because it's 162 games, to not hit the panic button because the Wilpons no longer own the team. But I said in our show when we previewed opening day, I said this team had a lot of what ifs coming in. If Alonso didn't perform, what was going to happen? If Conforto didn't perform off the bat, what was going to happen? Alonso had a good series in Chicago, had a couple of bombs, but look, Michael Conforto, a Scott Boras client who's going to command $200 million, is barely hitting his weight at this point. after starting the season so well defensively, they completely had the rug taken out of them in terms of, I remember Gary Cohen's broadcast, I think this was the other day, said, put a tent on that circus. That's just really, where the Mets have been living off their pitching for the first month of the season. And before the Chicago series, their team ERA was, and this includes the bullpen, was under 3. I mean, when was the last time you said that about the Mets bullpen and Edwin Diaz? So, this pitch, just like the Yankees, I think the Mets hitting is going to come around. I mean, thankfully they're in a very competitive division where they're all really going to beat up on each other this year. So they're going to be relevant over the course of the entire season. But you can't blame Met fans for getting a little impatient at this point with the fact that they're just not hitting with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, it's really crazy. James Kelly, any final thoughts on the New York Yankees now that obviously things are tied up 3 apiece?
I'm just looking for a turning point for this season. If we have Cleveland for 4 games this weekend, then we have Baltimore, and then we're back at home against Detroit. So, we had a little bit of a tough schedule to start it off. Toronto twice, Tampa Bay twice. So if we're looking for a stretch of games that's going to get us back on track, it's definitely Cleveland, Baltimore, and Detroit. That's the stretch of games we got to aim for.
And the crazy part is that Rougned Odor just may be that X factor to really put this over the edge. How crazy is that? But James Kelly, ladies and gentlemen, Elite Sports New York contributor. James, thank you so much for coming on here tonight. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back on later on when it comes to really full-time baseball. Without all the other sports going on.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Anytime. I will take literally any chance I get to talk about baseball into a microphone. It's the whole gig.
I love it, man. Well, you have yourself a great night, and let's go Yankees, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
On. All right. So, yeah, it's really crazy because, we know this guy here. And I got to ask you this question.
This guy.
Well, you actually have to face the other way. Yeah. That way. There you go. Good. There you go. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah,
See, he's pointing to himself there. Ladies and gentlemen, Casey Bryant with us, and we don't really have to go into where he's from. We all know his spiel already. But listen, I got to ask you this because you're practically a part of the Primetime Rundown family. You're New York Mets. What's going on here?
Wow. What a lead-in. I'll say this, Joey. I'm firmly planted right now in the post-second shot haze. I got mine yesterday, so I've been really just sweaty, achy, a little dizzy. So, in other words, it's a Jacob deGrom night, and that's par for the course. Trying to watch this offense produce, just generally just sweating a lot, shaking your head, getting whiplash from the vociferous shaking. Listen, I'm not hitting the panic button on any particular aspect of the New York Mets yet, but it's a lot. It's a lot to take in right now. Their lack of production with runners in scoring position remains a constant. They had another double play with runners in scoring position tonight, so that's fun.
Casey's having fun.
Well, you know what? Actually, I want to keep the fun going just before we get to hockey because this is fantastic. Are you a Baltimore Orioles fan yet?
Well, I'm wearing my orange in case you couldn't tell. So, it's granted it's for the hat tricks, but it's more just in general feeling the Baltimore Oriole love. My man's Matt Harvey getting his first dub in a very long time. Is this the O's year? Because with the Yanks struggling, the East is that door's opening.
Listen, big 65 wins.
I swear, if we start this Orioles chat again, I'm gonna lose it.
Listen,
Casey can do it all night.
Feed me Marty Cordova, baby. Let's go.
Casey can pull out any name.
Listen, let me just tell you, Melvin Mora or nothing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
You're telling me my man's Jonathan Scope isn't leading this team to glory? You're telling me Mark Trumbo ain't leading this team to glory?
Oh, anyway, my God, that is something else. Ladies and gentlemen, Casey Bryant is with us here. That was a pretty good lead-in. That was similar to like one of those Saturday Night Live, lead-ins where you just, you get things started and then you just, you welcome him in. And, as always, Casey, we love to have you here as always. And let's get things started because hockey is upon us. The trade deadline has just come and gone. And we are seeing the New York Rangers right now. They're doing some good things. The New York Islanders did put a stop on that just a couple of days ago. But the New York Rangers, though, and as I see, of course, I know what Ian's going to say because I know him very well as he's shaking his head. And probably he's thinking these exact words. Of course, you had to say that and to really incorporate that in that sentence. Yes, I had to. But what I do know is that the New York Rangers, though, in all seriousness, are looking very, very, very good. And I mean, playoffs is not really something that is out of the question just yet.
Not yet. Not yet. It's not out of the question yet mathematically. I don't think that it will happen, if only just because this is the kind of signs that you'd like to see from a rebuilding team. It took a while for Alexis Lafreniere to really get comfortable. And by that, I mean it took him a while to earn playing with Mika Zibanejad and Pavel Buchnevich on the top line. He finally took Chris Kreider's spot on the top line. So, and before he started the year playing with the likes of Kevin Rooney on line 4 or Brett Howden on line 3. He needed to play with skilled guys, and it took a while for the coaching staff to finally put him in the right position. Ultimately, I think that the team suffered greatly from Artemi Panarin missing 12 games because of his bout with KGB-itis. So and the Boston Bruins are just winning too many games right now. They've won 6 in a row. So
have you seen the Boston Bruins schedule? To be fair to the Rangers here,
hey, they're playing the same opponents as we are.
Right.
As
in terms of how the scheduling worked out down the stretch, the Bruins were given a cupcake.
But you're all playing the same people. That's the schedule isn't really an excuse. You're playing all the same opponents and the same Buffalo Sabres that are rolling over at like my yellow Labrador over there in the corner to the Boston Bruins. I mean, they're the same Buffalo Sabres that beat the Rangers twice this year. So the Rangers swept the New Jersey Devils. That's great. The New Jersey Devils are essentially fielding a glorified ECHL team.
Better believe it.
So the Rangers lost to the Philadelphia Flyers when they shouldn't have last night. So are the playoffs out of the question? No, but this is more about growing than anything else.
But I think the biggest thing here, DeLuca, in just 1 second, is that it just shows how good this team will be next year when $13 million comes off the books. 13 of it is dead money right now. This scares me as an Islanders fan, Rob DeLuca. Does this not scare you as a Devils fan?
Joey, that's exactly what I was just going to say. This is exactly what the Rangers fans wanted to see from this team. Be in the fight and be close. I personally do mathematically know it's not over, but with only 9 games left, 8 after tonight as they currently lead 2-1, that hanging on here would put them to within 6 points, and the Bruins have games in hand, so it's very, very tough to say that the Rangers might be able to squeeze past Boston for that 4th spot. I don't see it. But in terms of the next year and beyond, I'm terrified of the New York Rangers right now. As Casey pointed out, Alexis Lafreniere, when he plays with the skilled guys, he's looking good. He's got himself an assist tonight, I believe, on the Pavel Buchnevich goal. And honestly, I think that those are just the guys that Lafreniere needed to start playing with. That's what the coaching staff needed to realize. As Casey said, Casey pretty much nailed it. But this is definitely the progress that Rangers fans wanted to see. It's certainly progress fans that myself as a Devils fan and other Devils fans wanted to see from the New Jersey Devils, and we have essentially seen regression. So I would much rather be in the spot of the New York Rangers right now because this actually looks like fun. I'm going to go so far to use the word fun. This looks like fun to me, mainly because Casey, they're in the lead. Looks like fun to me.
Well, you touched on the cap situation in particular. The cap situation is very, very tricky because, yes, you do have a lot of money coming off the books because, if there's one thing that the New York Rangers organization loves, it's to buy people out. I'm surprised at this point that they haven't bought out the equipment trainer. They haven't bought out, the third video editor for their commercial spots. It's at this point they just love buying people out and handing out dead money. And they're going to have even more of it once they buy out Anthony D'Angelo at the end of the year. So it's not like they're going to be totally free of that. The question becomes, do you go for it right now and try to land a big fish in the offseason, or do you kind of play it smart and don't go crazy spending in the offseason so that you can lock up Buchnevich long-term and after next season because Zibanejad is going to be off the books. So you kind of have to take a lot of things into account. I think that Buchnevich's salary is going to be doubled, if not more, in the offseason. And then you have to consider, do you keep Mika? Do you keep Ryan Strome? Who's going to Seattle? It's a very tricky situation where I don't think the Rangers are going to be as crazy in the offseason as people seem to think. I think that they're going to play it very conservative and wait to see what prospects are ready for the NHL next year, because Zach Jones is coming up. Nils Lundqvist is coming over from Sweden. You're going to have, and you need another year from Kakko and Lafreniere. So it's a very precarious situation. Fun, yes, but precarious.
Ian Schraier, you as the Rangers fan, how quote unquote fun is it to see this right now when expectations and the bar was set extremely low?
Well, I think expectations were set kind of right in the middle, to be honest with you. I think that's the best way to put it, is that we're still in the thick of this rebuild. And I think Ranger fans had a sense of false security because after the return, as I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, after the return to play tournament, I think all Ranger fans expected, all right, baby, that's it. We were in. We got to the playoffs a year earlier than we expected, and then we got swept by Carolina, and we realized that we weren't as good as we thought we were. I think for the Rangers, I think things are progressing nicely. I think things are progressing on track as much as they can be. I love finally seeing Vitaly Kravtsov here from Russia. It's been way too long to wait for this guy to finally want to come over. And I know the Rangers kind of loaned him over and said, let him finish the KHL season and then let him come over. But this is a team that was just in dire need of just, as early as maybe less than a month ago, just in terms of offensive production, other than a guy named Artemi Panarin. I mean, think about how long it took, as Casey had mentioned, look how it took to get a guy like Zibanejad going. But I do think that I agree with Casey. I can see a conservative approach to free agency. I don't think that that's still not going to take them out of the big fish picture. I still think that they're going to entertain ideas, around with Buffalo for Jack Eichel. I still haven't given up on that. But I do think at the same time, I think they need these role players on the third and fourth lines, that they need to acquire guys that have done it before, winners. They need to acquire guys who have won cups. They need that type of leadership on the bench. They are so young, and I think they're hitting their stride now to a point where next year you say, maybe next year's the year where we need to take that run at a playoff spot. And in order to do so, they need a little more veteran leadership there. And they need to decide what they're doing on the blue line. Aside from Keandre Miller, aside from Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren, there's three other players on that blue line that they need to address. Obviously, Brendan Smith comes off the books at the end of this year. They shipped, obviously, Mark Stahl over to Detroit before the season started. But that's where guys like Zach Jones and Nils Lundqvist come in, because these are guys that they're projecting to come out and maybe not be stars, but be, a big piece of that supporting cast. So if not, they need to address defense, and they need to get a couple of key role players, because that's what they're missing right now.
You look at the salary cap with the New York Rangers, and I want to take a little detour off the road here. I don't want to completely crash the car, but what I do want to know here is, for the New York Rangers fans out there that are watching, definitely give us a couple of comments here. I want to ask this question that a lot of people had said, and maybe it was out of spite, out of hate in the Islanders fans groups that I'm in, but a lot of people that I saw, not even Islanders fans too, I saw some Rangers fans even say it too, and I was a little skeptical about it. Is there a possibility that Artemi Panarin's $11,642,857 contract, would that eventually backfire on them because of that high salary cap, especially because we are in a flat era right now with guys such as Zibanejad, Pavel Buchnevich, Kaapo Kakko, and who knows, maybe Lafreniere, if he continues to develop in a upward progression. Does that $11 million hold them back from signing another big fish?
That's a good question, Joey. And I'm going to follow up with another question. I'm kind of curious to get Casey's input as well as Joey and Rob's, but Casey more because he's a Ranger fan. There was an article in the New York Post, I believe it was last week, in regards to the Rangers entertaining trading some of their rising prospects right now in the hopes of landing a big fish because they don't want to have to pay somebody else. So Casey, I guess you first, do you think that we could see them entertaining a name that was floated around was a name like Keandre Miller? Do you see them floating around because of all the draft capital they have and some of the young stars that are progressing? Could you see them trying to trade some of those young players to go get the big fish and take a run at it next year?
Ian, did you see the clip the other day of Pavel Buchnevich when he was asked a question from Larry Brooks and what his reaction was in the post-game scrum? There was a question over Zoom. They're asked questions and they go, all right, next up is Larry Brooks from the New York Post. Pavel Buchnevich openly covers his face. Goes like this.
I didn't see that, no.
That is my reaction anytime Larry Brooks or Brett Sergalis or anyone from the Post opens their mouth in regards to what the Rangers roster decisions should be. I'm sorry if that hinders you guys' ability to book them on the show in the future. But the Post opinions are just, it's rag. It is awful. So should they trade Keandre Miller? No, they'd be absolutely stupid to do so. Should they? Will the Artemi Panarin contract backfire? Absolutely not. I think Artemi Panarin, if anything, is underpaid, as evidenced by the fact that he literally left money on the table to go play for the New York Rangers because he was offered more and he's worth more. He
was offered more out east.
Yeah, remind me again, Joey, what team offered him more money?
Yeah, the New York Islanders did, but his girlfriend, Manhattan,
baby.
Yeah, and the biggest reason why he went into Manhattan was because of his girlfriend and her fashion career.
Exactly. You know,
yeah. Because Long Island or Brooklyn is so far away from Manhattan. That's why he chose Rangers.
Listen, if you have a chance to get yourself Sabaros all day, every day, you do it. Okay.
Yeah, he's got a point though.
So I don't think that the $11 million was a bad idea at the time, because at the time we didn't predict a global pandemic hindering the salary cap. And even still, I don't think the salary cap will be as bad as it's projected, because I think Seattle will come in and raise the ceiling as Vegas did.
There's only one more year of flat cap. There's only one more year of flat cap. It's projected to go up in 2 years.
Yes, but you have to remember though. See, and I want to interrupt here just for a quick second, because just before the pandemic, right, there were obviously talks of it reaching about 85 million and then eventually 90 million. So
it's absolutely hindered compared to what it was. But I think that there are certain teams in the NHL that have proven they can get it done with really top-loaded contracts. Look at what the Toronto Maple Leafs are doing right now. The Maple Leafs have 4 players that are worth $10 million on that roster: Matthews, Martin Tavares, and Nylander.
Joey's face, you could just see it.
Wow. I have my comments after. Continue, Casey.
Well, the Pittsburgh Penguins time and time again prove that the salary cap is just an illusion, because they somehow always squeeze in.
Tampa Bay's literally cheating right now.
Yeah,
you can't tell me they're not cheating.
LTIR, but I just mean Pittsburgh in general will be we have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Fleury all making $40 million combined, but we can squeeze in Jerome McGinley and Patrick Hornqvist, right? We can pay Chris Kunitz too. The Rangers will find a way to make it work. I'm not concerned about the cap crunch. But as far as trading prospects will go, I would sooner trade a guy like Jones or Nils Lundqvist in a pursuit of a Jack Eichel than a guy like Keandre Miller, because Keandre Miller has proven that he can be a stud on the top.
Well, Casey, to follow up on that immediate question right there, which already NHL roster player would you send to Buffalo? Because in order to get a Jack Eichel, one of them has to go too. So
I think that a freshly minted Brett Howden, if you dust him up and send him off, he brings the best donuts into the locker room. They're
Does Buffalo have good donuts?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. His mom brings orange slices. I don't know something.
Listen, we're not sponsored. Listen, we are not in any way sponsored or anything by Tim Hortons. But how much better?
Yeah.
How much better donuts can you have than Tim Hortons, which is literally right across the way?
I've never been to a Tim
Exactly.
Hortons. Let the record.
I
show.
don't.
Wow.
I don't think that it would take as much as people think to get Jack Eichel, if only just because I have very little faith in the Sabres general management. They handed away Ryan O'Reilly like he was a 3-button coat at the Salvation Army, and
You know what? He's right. I mean, this Buffalo management and leadership, the Pagulas, I think, just don't care anymore about the Sabres. They're like, hockey, meh.
We're going to the Bills. That's it. We're throwing all
Yeah,
our
you
money
know
at
what they
the
did
Bills.
to the NWHL. I mean, well, Casey knows what they did to the NWHL's Buffalo Buttes. So the Paculas look at hockey and they just go, all right.
They said they want former first-round picks. So, like, you telling Brett Howden is a former first-round pick.
Yeah,
Ryan Strome is a former first-round pick. I would say Ryan Strome is the most tradable asset on the team because he's still young, he's talented, his numbers are inflated because he plays with Artemi Panarin. So, like, I'd get rid of him.
Yeah, I could have traded, Kyle Palmieri, Travis Zajac, former first-round picks, We're talking former.
I could have traded Dylan McElrath. We're sending Hugh Jesse, huge specimen.
Dylan McElrath.
The one bust of the 2003 NHL draft.
You're going to tell me like Manny Malhotra is next on that list?
There was not a single bad player in the 2003 NHL draft's first round, or even pouring into the second round. There was not one bust in the 2003 draft except for Hugh Jessamine, and the Rangers took him.
Legendary timeout. Legendary Montreal Canadian Manny Malhotra. That's right. We have to remember that.
Joey, I'm very curious to hear your counterpoint to Casey about the Toronto Maple Leafs, because I'm sure some of your
we need those points.
So what really grinds my gears in terms of the Toronto Maple Leafs, okay, is very simple, and it's twofold, okay? The Toronto Maple Leafs are playing in the Scotia North Division that features, mind you, let me just get this.
Yeah, Joey. But
it features Winnipeg, it features Edmonton, it features Montreal, it features Calgary, Vancouver, who, by the way, is just coming back from a COVID-19 scare. And not only that, a completely different strain than what the United States has even seen, okay? As well as Ottawa. So, listen, I don't want to say that Toronto has had it a tiny bit easy, but this team is filled with players with names. Yeah, they can do a fantastic job against the aforementioned teams of Winnipeg, Edmonton, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver, Ottawa. Why? Because Ottawa is trash currently, right now. They're going to be good in about 4 years. Vancouver is literally hanging by a thread. Calgary, they're in full rebuild or 3/4 rebuild. Montreal is trying to get there, but they're not there yet. And they really, I thought, would have been like in the 3 spot or even in the 2 spot. Yeah, they have some.
Carey Price could not stay healthy for the life of him, and it killed Montreal essentially, because when you don't have your prime goaltender, you're going down.
Well, that is true as well. And really, we have not seen what Carey Price has. He has not been the same in the last 5-6 years yet.
No, very young guy. It feels like Carey Price has been in this league for 20 years at this point.
Right. And also, again, you also have a decent name in Jake Allen behind him, who really has been struggling as well. Their goal differential is only +4. Toronto, 29-13-5 is their record, 63 points. Listen, they have a star-studded lineup. They really do. They have a solid 1 through 4, but they're still a first-round exit. Listen, we also don't know what the deal is with the border. Okay, we also have no idea what is going to be with the Canadian teams. In my opinion, the top 4 teams should head down to the States and they should play in, let's say, Buffalo, or they should play in. I don't know. Is there a play? Unfortunately, Minnesota's making the playoffs. They're not going to field 2 teams there.
Buffalo's a perfect spot, especially
for Toronto. For Toronto, yes.
So location aside, you think that the Maple Leafs are losing in the first round in the North Division?
Joey.
I think they're losing. No. If they were to play an American team, they're 100% a first-round exit.
Oh, sure.
In the North Division, no, they are not a first-round exit.
You put them against Boston, they'll be out 7.
They're going to play Montreal.
Well, sure. You put Toronto against Boston, they'll be out in 7 like every year.
Exactly. Right.
But nonetheless,
or you even put them against
a different Maple
Leaf.
This is a different Maple Leafs team. But Joey. Aside from the point, they're going to the semifinals. They're going to play in Buffalo in the semifinals because they are going to walk through this Canadian division for the first 2 rounds. They're going to be the team out of the Canadian division. I'll say it now, unless they choke, which I don't know how you can choke against any of these teams. They are worlds better than any team in Canada now.
The only team that I personally believe that could give them a run for their money in a 7-game series is Winnipeg. And Toronto will still come out. But again, Winnipeg is definitely the...
If Connor Hellebuyck has an off night, they're done for.
We saw that last year.
Joey, I said if Connor Hellebuyck has an off night, the Winnipeg Jets are done for that night.
Yeah. But that's the thing. We said that last year too when they went into that playoff series. Also, remember that.
Yeah.
Winnipeg was supposed to be that sleeper team because Hellebuyck was having a Vezina year and they were one and done.
Look, I have to hard disagree on the notion that the Maple Leafs are still a first round exit if they were playing in the normal Atlantic division. I think that they would beat most teams in the Atlantic as opposed to this year. If this was a year in a normal year and the Maple Leafs with this current roster that they have, if they lost in the first round again, honestly, the franchise needs to be old Yellard. Like, you can't lose in the first round with this construction. Yeah. Honestly, Kyle Dubas would have to fling himself from the CN Tower. There's just no way that this team is built to lose again in the first round. I think their depth is better than it ever has been. Yeah. The reason why they struggle of late
is a new Maple Leafs team. This is different.
Well, the reason why they struggle of late is because Frederik Andersen, their starting goaltender, is hurt, and they've had to rely on some dude that you've never heard of winning 11 games in a row in order to kind of.
He did just that.
Well, let me just say this as well. And this is a big thing too, fellas, is that I guarantee you, and it's very evident, okay, that they were not able to make these moves if Freddie Andersen was not on the long-term injured reserve because their salary cap is $84 million. So if you, let's say, for instance, remove Freddie Andersen from the long-term IR, you've got $5 million now heading back on the books. Now, who's going to come off of that? Well, do you remove, let's see, a guy named Nick Foligno? Do you remove a guy named, I don't know, Ben Hutton, who really, again, is another defenseman who we all know Toronto's defense has been absolutely Swiss cheese in the last, 3-4 years. Again, you don't. I think that right now they are riding on the fact that the 2 goaltenders in Jack Campbell and David Rittich as well. They've been and also Michael Hutchinson as well. They've been fantastic, and they've been able to use that their small payroll, if you will, or their small combined payroll to get these Nick Folignos, Riley Nashes, who we don't even know if he's going to play. But again, small flyer on him. And it would be nice to see Jumbo win a playoff round. It would be nice for him to win a Stanley Cup, but not with Toronto. No, not with Toronto, please. That would grind my gears even more.
No, Joey, I agree. Casey, I agree. They're not a first-round exit. I think unless they're playing Boston because they're literally cursed by Boston for whatever reason, it literally would just happen in 7 as it does every year. But no, nonetheless, they're gonna make it to the semifinals. And we'll see what happens when they come down. We'll see what it's like for them to play in Buffalo because I assume just with how close that is to Toronto, that's where they'll play when the semifinals get started. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to that ice for their however many home games they get for that series. And it'll be interesting to see who they play, who comes out of the East, who comes out of the.
If they don't make the Eastern Conference Final, it's a failure.
That's what I'm. Is it even?
I think if they don't make the Stanley
they could end up playing like Chicago. So it's like, is it even? Can we even call it the Eastern Conference Final? Because what if Chicago makes it? Like out of the Central.
Again, Chicago. I don't even know. I don't think Chicago will make it. Number one, and again, that is another good spot for maybe a Winnipeg to potentially play there.
Right. Yeah. Only one team's coming down because it's all in division the first 2 rounds. So it all depends who comes out. And I'm saying it with 99.9% certainty that it's going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. So nonetheless, I think it'll be interesting. And Casey's right. If Toronto isn't the team coming down to America out of the Canadian division, they've got big problems to deal with. Big ones.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Ian Schraier, your thoughts on the NHL moving forward, and especially in the North Division, Scotia North Division, that fields the Toronto Maple Leafs and 6 others.
No, I think the North Division, like you guys said, is just Toronto and everybody else. It's hard to, you had mentioned, Joey, Calgary's in the process of a rebuild. Ottawa's rebuilding. I thought Montreal would have been the team, if anybody, to really run with Toronto because of how we saw Montreal perform in the playoffs last year and the start that they got out to the start of this season. Teams like, with Winnipeg, I mean, after last year, their performance in the playoffs, I mean, you're just kind of riding the coattails of Connor Hellebuck a bit. And we saw how that worked out for the Jets last year. And then, the status quo of the Oilers are they're the Oilers. They're a two-trick pony. So no, I think that, like Casey said, like Rob said, it's hard to disagree that, the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't the class of that division and aren't Eastern Conference final bound. I don't even so much if I disagree with you there, Joey, in saying, is it a failure if they don't even make it to the Stanley Cup final? I think I'm not ready to go there just yet, just because of who is sitting, because of the rest of really of the East. Okay. When you're looking at, even when you look at the Eastern Division and you look at the Islanders and you look at the Capitals and you even look at the Penguins, as scary as that is to say, who thought coming into the season we would talk about the Boston Bruins being the team that's holding the last playoff spot right now in that division? I didn't. I mean, I think we all kind of wrote off the Penguins and penciled in, not even so much in pencil, but in pen, just wrote in the Philadelphia Flyers because we expected them after the year they had. But Carter Hart's been, I mean, not even close to a shell of what he was. Yeah, very.
He's been looking like Ilya Brizgalov the year that they bought him out.
Yeah, I think you're being kind with that point, but no, I just think it's hard because of the level of competition they're playing. Yeah, the Maple Leafs are loaded, but again, I think you could say the same also too for the Islanders. Like, the Islanders still have offensive issues. Like in one night they go up against the Rangers, they score 5 or 6 goals. The next night they play Buffalo and they score 1. You don't know what you're going to get out of that team. What happens when they go up against a Carolina in the playoffs? But to keep things on point here, I don't see how, kind of what stops the Maple Leafs from just running away with that division and making a deep run in the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I just don't know what a deep run will consist of, like who they will play, where they will play. I can't wait to see and that's another thing too, fellas, and correct me if I'm wrong or even disagree or agree. I think the biggest thing here is that with all of these teams, I think that every single team that will be making the playoffs, right? Literally every single team that eventually branches out of their division, it is a complete crapshoot. We have no idea what these teams are going to be capable of when they're flying maybe across the country. Maybe they're flying a little further than they have been in the last year. Literally the last 13 months, which at next year would be 14 months. And that's a lot. You never know. These guys may not be used to playing a team like Florida, a team like Tampa Bay, a team like Carolina. I don't know if you're Nashville, maybe playing the Islanders, for instance, or playing Washington. Nashville's in the Western Conference normally. Now they're in the Eastern Conference. So it's a little weird to see what is going to happen. And I think that not even with Toronto, I think with every single team this whole year, we are going to see a Stanley Cup champion that we didn't even have.
I would agree with that.
I can see that because I don't care that we see Vegas right now and Colorado at 68 and 66 points. I want to see Vegas go up against a team like Washington or a team like Carolina right now, or even a team, I can't believe I'm saying this, like Florida. Florida looks pretty good, but maybe how about, same point, Florida going up against the Vegas.
Joey, aside from Florida, I mean, let's go back to what you were saying about maybe there's a team that wins the cup that we don't expect. I mean, is there really many teams right now that are in contention that you wouldn't at least put in the playoffs and say to yourself, this team has enough, but needs the right break to make a run to the cup?
Yeah, Carolina. That's what I think. I think Carolina, not even Florida, because Florida is a flash in the pan. Pittsburgh as well. the amount of Stanley Cup experience that Pittsburgh has now that they've got Jeff Carter in there, which again, on a retained salary, only making $2.2 million is absolute highway robbery, but I digress. You know, again, we see this, we see the way that this trajectory is going. We just have no idea how it's all going to pan out when these teams are, you know, for the first time. And as I said, 14 months, they're visiting one another when they usually see them twice a year. So they know what they're getting, you know, and obviously playoffs are a completely different animal. Now we're starting to see here in the United States that fans are being allowed in the building. We now know by, I think after May 18th or May 19th out here at the Coliseum, also out at the Garden, at Madison Square Garden, as well as KeyBanks. Well, they're not going to be playing Buffalo in, you know, after May 8th, but not the Garden, but the Coliseum, most likely, if they win or not around, they will be hosting 25% capacity. Again, things are rising here, so that could play a factor too with maybe a Canadian team that has yet to have a single fan in a building because everything up in all of the provinces are locked shut. They have not played around fans. That's another thing too, fellas. That's why another thing I say that is a complete crapshoot with everything that's going on here within the NHL and with this pandemic. Guys, I want to keep moving forward here because we're actually working right on time here. Guys, Patrick Marleau, Carolina Hurricanes legend, Patrick Marleau, has been a fantastic player throughout his you know, infamous San Jose Shark career. He is Mr. San Jose Shark. First round draft, first overall pick, 1997. You know, excuse me, number one, I believe, 97. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellas.
It was second overall in 97.
Second overall, right, because Joe Thornton was number one, Boston. That's my mistake. Thank you. So with that being said, he just surpassed Gordie Howe for the most regular season games played. 1,768 regular season games played. Really amazing stuff, guys. Any Patrick Marleau moments that have lit up to any of you guys, because he's been around all of our lives?
I tell you what, I won't ever forget those 8 unforgettable games that he spent with the Pittsburgh Penguins, baby. That's what we remember, like on his Hall of Fame plaque where they map out where he was gonna go. Like, you're gonna have to scribe the Pittsburgh Penguins on there, and you're gonna be like, he was a Penguin? When was that?
It's like describing Casey Mike Piazza being a Florida Marlin.
Exactly, yeah. So I can see
analogy,
it
right?
up to like Penguins Old Timers Day in his jersey, waving to the crowd. Hey, it's been great.
Who is this guy?
Oh, Johnny, let me tell you, I saw Patty Marleau win that one time in March. It was a 5-2 loss to the Ottawa Senators, but he had an assist. That was the only he skated for 15 minutes, boy, and let me tell you, he was there. He got that cardio in. No, Patty Marleau, it's crazy. I never would have thought that he would come that close to Gordie Howe's record. If you were to ask me what Gordie Howe's games played record was, I would think that it was insurmountable. That man played in 5 different decades. Like, it's wild.
I think 6 decades. I think there was a 6th decade in there somewhere.
But now, like, Patty Marleau played in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. So he's in his 4th decade playing. You're like, how is that possible?
He's got it. He's got 2030. We're locked in.
Now, after his comments, he said that his wife Christine is very, very willing to let him go for as long as he wants. So, and he's not ready to hang up the skates yet.
Can it be with somewhere other than San Jose where he actually can have a cup for once?
No.
The Sharks are not getting a cup anytime soon.
That is correct. No, he will never leave.
Go somewhere else again?
No, he will never leave. No.
He will never. Well, you see, they tried to send him away. He just kept coming back.
I mean, look, Lou Lamoriello is all about taking on guys 60 years old and up. So, I mean,
hey, it could be that trade in the works for next year.
And not only that, too, fellas. In addition to the 60-year-olds playing, let's not ever forget the amazing game just a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even a week ago, I believe it was, when when Barry Trotz, and again, I don't mean to again take a detour and crash the car, but I really am here. When Barry Trotz decided to start Andy Green and bench Noah Dobson, when Noah Dobson was playing a little bit better than Andy Green, he decided to go with his veteran as opposed to the youngster who still has the wheels and whatnot. I digress there. So again, I think going back to Casey's point in terms of the Hall of Fame plaque, I think the biggest thing here, Casey, is, as I brought up in the lead-in here, is the Carolina Hurricanes. He was an amazing player with them.
He's it's like Atlanta Hawks legend Carmelo Anthony. It's just one of those things where you'll never forget that tenure and
Atlanta Hawks legend Vince Carter.
I'm like, well, no, Vince at least played for the Hawks. Melo never played for the Hawks. So
that's true.
Exactly. He was literally a transaction for about 7 minutes, and that's exactly where Patty Marleau stands with the Carolina Hurricanes as well.
What was your favorite minute of those 7? I think minute 3 is when he really hit his stride.
I think so.
Yeah.
No, Casey, I don't know. There was you kind of saw some potential in minute 4 there, though.
I agree. Minute 4 is a great minute. But minute 3, there's something about that minute 3, the intangibles that he brought in that minute.
Patrick Marleau, years ago, I don't know if I ever told this story, but years ago, as we know, the Nassau Coliseum is right across the street from a Marriott, and that's where all the visiting teams stay. And I had gone to school at Nassau Community College. And for those that are watching, some of the Islanders fans, the Islanders groups that I've posted our podcast in, they know what I did. And I almost killed Patty Marleau by mistake. It wasn't, it was my bad.
You had one too many at Champs. That's what happened.
Say it again.
I said you had one too many at Champs. That's what happened.
No. Listen, I was in English 101. Okay, at Nassau Community College. Okay, I'll never forget it where I was. Okay, and I remember this one guy that I used to know. Okay, he said to me, he's like, "Listen, you should come to the Coliseum parking lot. You got the Sharks, who you love, and you love Patty Marleau. He might be walking across to morning skate." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to definitely come over." And I knew that I was running late because I had a test, and I sped out of the parking lot out of Nassau Community College. And I raced into the parking lot over there. And as I'm driving in, Patty Marleau is crossing the street. And I swerve around Patty and I basically park my car sideways. And I have a picture of it. I got to find it. And as Casey is holding his head there, yes, I was inches away from hitting Patty Marleau. And I took my jersey out, got the signature, and I even got the picture with him as well. And then he looked at me and he said these words, "Thanks for not running me over." I said, "Absolutely." And to this day, that jersey is now hanging on my wall. And that is my favorite Patty Marleau moment. And if I was about 2 seconds, just a little bit earlier, he might be in the hospital. He might not be the same player he was today. And it would have all been because of me.
Joey, is that jersey sitting right next to your Auntie Niemi jersey too? Is that you?
No. That is actually, listen, that is actually sitting right next to my Stefan Robida jersey that I got signed at the Coliseum as well. The legendary Toronto Maple Leaf, Stefan Robida.
Do you actually have an Auntie Niemi jersey? Because I also do.
No, I do not.
I have a Blackhawks Auntie Niemi jersey. That's not a joke.
Of course you do, Casey.
So the running over Patrick Marleau is classic because I'm envisioning you parking the car right next to him after almost running him over, flying out of your door and with a rabid, crazed look in your eye going, "Marleau!" and just racing toward him with a Sharpie and a jersey you're some crazed fanatic like that awful John Travolta movie.
It's very funny you bring that up because that is the day actually, and it's a fantastic love story actually. It is the day that I actually met Tyler, our good friend Tyler Adele as well. And he actually was the one to take the picture and I gave it to him, the stranger Tyler that I had no idea. And I said, "Here, can you take my picture?" And from that day forward, the rest is history. But if he was on here, he knows the exact specifics because he was an outsider, literally an outsider, because he had no idea who this crazed fan was, running out with a Patty Marleau jersey and here with me coming in, racing in as if I'm a crazed fan, like a nut job about to run this guy over. Really crazy stuff. But that is my Patty Marleau moment.
So if we're taking detours to talk about parking lot stories, if I can tell one real quick.
Of course you can.
So my dad works in insurance and did for a very long time, and he had a claim out in the Shea Stadium parking lot many years ago. So he's at an empty Shea Stadium parking lot, and the Shea Stadium parking lot at this point, completely vacant lot except for one car, and every other spot has cones on it.
Okay.
That one car belongs to Fred Wilpon, and Fred Wilpon is walking out of the stadium, and he's walking next to my dad. My dad is like trying to bite his tongue and not ask him any number of questions that you would be dying to ask Fred Wilpon in that moment. So Fred Wilpon gets in his car and just backs his car straight into a cone, just like runs that thing over and just drags it underneath his car. And Fred Wilpon has no idea what's wrong with his car, so he gets out and like looks around. And my dad turns over to him and goes, "You ran over a cone." And Fred Wilpon goes, "Huh?" Dad like looks around at like this parking lot full of cones. Like, am I imagining this? What is that? You ran over a cone. You see those hundreds of thousands of cones? You ran one of them over. And Fred goes, "Oh," gets back in his car and drives away. And eventually the cone unwedged itself and Fred got out of it. That is as good a metaphor for his management of the Mets as I can ever think.
I was going to say that's that just basically outlines his career as the owner of the Mets.
Yep, Fred Wilpon running over our cones of our hopes and dreams.
Good Lord. Good Lord. Well, it's very funny that you bring up the New York Mets, because it's very funny that the winning run may have come off of Jacob deGrom's bat. Yes, he hit an RBI single.
Double.
Or excuse me, he hit an RBI double from what I see here. He's pitching right now, as this, I guess, could be our sports update, but he pitched 6 scoreless, 12 strikeouts, and his ERA now is down to a .35. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, he can also do it at the dish as well. And
he's gotta. I mean,
the Mets are up.
He's really got to.
Yeah,
well, the Mets are now up 3-0, all off of Ian's best friend in Brandon Nimmo. Right.
Brandon Nimmo, 2 RBI single. Yep.
That's right.
Which DeGrom also scored on. So he also crossed the plate too.
Well, it's so good that Louis Rojas, or I should say the Mets front office, when they collaborated on the lineup, because Jacob deGrom can swing the bat, batted him 8th.
Yeah.
So does he even come to the plate in an RBI situation?
Who batted 9th? Who batted?
Nito.
Tomas Nito.
I say this with all the respect in the world. I sincerely think that I could beat up Tomas Nito.
Many times. Casey loves Tomas Nito.
I sincerely think if you put me in a ring 1-on-1, because for Tomas Nito to take me down, he'd have to hit something.
Oh,
but he's a catcher. That's
he hit that slip and slide in the rainout pretty well.
The best thing that he hit was the send button on tweets mocking Trevor Bauer in the offseason. Other than that, what else is he hitting? Maybe he hits. I don't know.
At least he's a good catcher.
He won a batting title in the minor leagues, just to prove to you how stupid the Pacific Coast League is out in the West.
But he's a catcher. Is he a good catcher? That's what matters.
Remember, didn't Wilmer Flores hit like 480 in Vegas because all those numbers were so inflated?
Didn't Nick Evans hit like 600 there for his career? Ultimate quadruple A player.
Walk-off legend Wilmer Flores, by the way.
That's true. That is very true.
And a career like 230 hitter with them when he came up to the big leagues. But I digress.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're running actually ahead of schedule here, but let's head to the biggest sports update of the night. Unfortunately, we don't like to save the best for last, but this one is definitely one that rips our hearts out. Any sports fan, an NBA draft prospect, freshman out of Kentucky, Terrence Clark, lost his life in a car accident in Los Angeles in the area when he was out with some friends. May he rest in peace. Terrence Clark was most likely going to be a lottery pick out of Kentucky, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us here on this earth. So condolences from the whole Blackjack group, Blackjack Media Group, to the Clark family, and also to the Kentucky athletic program as well. That really is tough for John Calipari, also for the whole program as well. To see that someone in your Division I program goes down, and They won't be coming back. So brutal stuff there, guys, in our final sports update of the night. So let's move forward on to our kudos, because it is that time of the night, fellas. Let's start with Ian Schraier. Ian, and I know, Casey, I don't know if DeLuca told you, but yes, you are part of our kudos segment here, so you better come up with one if you don't have one. But
I figured Casey was on the show enough times where that if he knew he was on the final hour, he would just come up with something on spot.
I mean,
Schraier, let's hear it.
I mean, I have this feeling that Casey Bryant's kudos are going to the New York Knicks, but I'll let him bring that up. But my kudos are going to go to Howie Rose. I'm just thankful that he's back in the radio booth and that he's in good health. I know that when he stepped away, they didn't disclose any sort of medical condition, but there was some medical things going on with Howie, and we're just happy to have him back in the booth and rocking and rolling, and just hope he's in good health and pray it wasn't anything COVID related as well.
Casey Bryant.
Can you do me? If you look around, do you see that? Do you see that over there? Do you see my Knicks? Do you see my Knicks? Do you UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC my Knicks? Do you see them out here?
I see 8 in a row is what I see.
Julius Randle, bully. Reggie Bullock, bully. RJ Barrett, bully. This team cannot be stopped. Norvell Pell, bully. This
Did he just get signed, by the way?
Yeah, Norvell Pell. This is the funniest part of this whole thing. So I put money down on the over for a Knicks Pistons game. This was like a week or two ago. And this was when the Knicks beat the Pistons by 50. So the Knicks put up like 130. The over is 203.5. And the Knicks put up like 130. Like, they have an insane night's floor. The Pistons have like 70. They are just getting absolutely shellacked. Norvell Pell checks in the game for his first time in his NBA career and straight up rejects like 3 shots in the final minute of play. At one point, like, a hot mic picks him up saying, "Get the F out of here." Like it was hilarious. So I need points, and Norvell Pell is actively holding them back. Then Norvell Pell is like, goes to the free throw line after just breaking his finger. Like he literally is staring at it bent at a different area, and he still sinks both free throws. So Norvell Pell is obviously a god. Is he better than Kevin Durant? Yes. Is he going to win Finals MVP? Absolutely. I don't think that most improved player is out of the question. I don't believe that 6th man out of the year is out of the question. I don't think MVP is out of the question.
Julius Randle's the MVP, baby, and Tibbs is the coach of the year.
Yeah, so my kudos goes to the New York Knicks organization, specifically to my man's Norvell Pell.
Well, I know for a fact Rob DeLuca and the rest of the New Jersey Nets fans, of the Brooklyn Nets fans, are thinking to themselves, "Wow, Casey, wow." Rob DeLuca, your kudos.
Yeah, speaking of bullies, that's where my kudos are going tonight, to the English Premier League fans. Good job, everyone. We did it. We were successful. We bullied every single English Premier League team out of the incredibly stupid and dumb idea Super League. It's not going to happen now because of your great work over there in England, completely bullying these loser, greedy owners out of doing the most foolish thing you could ever do. And a little credit has to go to FIFA and UEFA for saying you're going to get kicked out of all these tournaments. You can't participate, and none of your players can play in the World Cup, which basically probably had the players say, look, we either pull out of this league or I'm leaving this team. And just a beautiful thing that this stupid creation from the Real Madrid owner is now dead. Thank God.
Well, I guess that really grinded your gears, huh?
Yeah, it was something.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll end off with my kudos here, and Ian knows exactly what that kudos is going to be. That is the St. Francis men's soccer team making the NCAA College Cup tournament, which I will be in attendance for. I'll be leaving for Wilmington, North Carolina on Monday, and if this show is aired on Friday, I will be coming to you live from Wilmington, North Carolina. So really good stuff there. The men's team just has to win against Milwaukee on Thursday night in the opening round. The winner of that contest will take on number 3 Indiana on Sunday night. But hopefully my bosses didn't see that. But we all we do know is that congratulations to St. Francis men's soccer for winning the Northeast Conference, Ian's favorite conference, and the Northeast Conference again. They did a fantastic job in penalty kicks, winning 6-5 against LIU last Friday. So really good stuff. That comes your way Thursday, April 29th at 6 p.m. That can be found on ncaa.com. Let's continue off with our Bills here as well. Tomorrow morning, we continue our partnership with the New York Professional Scouts Association. We will be highlighting former New York Mets general manager and scouting director Joe McIlvaine. He is the one that oversaw the drafting of Dwight Doc Gooden. That will come to you tomorrow morning starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time right here on the Eastern Observer. Also, ladies and gentlemen, start your morning with the Daily Wrestling News Show every day, Monday through Thursday, with the exception of Friday, of course, starting at 10 a.m. right here on the Eastern Observer and I-95 Sports Network. Also, let's not forget, where are we here? The Essential Wrestling Podcast continues. Episode number 51 comes your way Tuesday, April 27th, starting at 6 p.m. right here on the Eastern Observer. Join our guys, Al Carl, Ryan Joy, Tyler Riddell, John DeCani, John Smith, Gary Miheffi. Those guys will take you through the world of wrestling every Tuesday on the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Also, ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget to subscribe to us on the following platforms: Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and also, of course, by searching I-95 Sports Network on YouTube. One final time as well, ladies and gentlemen, Black Cats NYC is our proud sponsor. Free Cake is their newest album. Free Cake out now. Play Loud. You can find them on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Pandora, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music as well. Okay, all right. So now that is complete, ladies and gentlemen, Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, Casey Bryant, ladies and gentlemen, one final time, I'm Joey Jarzynka, and for all of us here at the Blackjack Media Group, we'll see you next time